Okay, in this video we're going to start looking at something called macros. So macros are mini programs that you can use. They're actually written in something called VBA. It's a cut down version of Visual Basic, which runs in all of the Office Suite programs, and it allows you to do basically quite a range of programmatic things, including all the things that you can actually do in this case Excel manually. Okay, the first thing that you need to do, the macros are actually protected, so from that version Office 2003 onwards there was a bit of a change to try and protect macros and not let anyone just to play around with them, because it is actually quite powerful. So as I say, by default they're turned off or they're hidden. So what you need to do is click in the area where all of your cells, your icons are, right click on that, and you will see something called customize the ribbon. So the ribbon is actually this area up here, what you can see, and you will notice a whole range of things. So this is where you can actually change which options you have displayed on your menu, and you will notice that the developer option is actually unticked. So what you want to do is tick that and OK. You'll see you've now got a developer menu option. Now you only have to do this once and then it'll be on all the time. Okay, so within the developer option there's quite a few other options, and one of them there is actually record macro. Okay, so you can, as I said, you can record a macro to do something. So I've got two sheets here, an employee sheet and a data sheet. We're going to create two very simple macros to basically navigate between the two sheets. So to do that, what I do is I say record macro, give it a name. So this is the one that's going to take us to the employees. So we go, I don't know, we'll call it employees sheet, something that's reasonable. You can actually give it shortcut keys if you want to do so, Control E or something like that if that's what you actually wanted. And okay, so now what it'll do is record everything I do. In this case all I want to do is actually just navigate to the employee sheet, so I do that. Stop the macro, and that's the end of it. If I actually click back on this macros button here, I can actually go and view the macro. Okay, so I've got a few options. Run, step into, allows you to actually run one step of the macro at a time. Edit, delete, and is obvious, so edit, just to have a look at what it is, and that's the macro. It says I need to select the employee sheet. Okay. I could actually write this code myself if I know the format, and I can add other code in there. Okay. But as I was saying beforehand, we don't actually want to do a lot of the complex macro stuff in this unit anyway. Okay, I want a second macro. I want to actually go back to where I came from, into the data sheet. So we'll do it again. So record macro. We'll call this one data sheet. I'm sure you've worked at what we're going to do. We'll click on the data sheet and stop the recording. We'll have a bit of a look at this one. Okay, so you can actually see there's our two macros there. So the employees sheet goes to the employees one, and the data one goes to the data one. Okay, so if you add other sheets, you could actually just put the code in yourself. As you can see, it's fairly straightforward. It's basically that format, sheets, open bracket, the name of the sheet, and select. And the macros will actually, if you rename the sheet, they will actually fix up the macros themselves. I could run the macro, so I'm on the data sheet for example. So if I actually go into the macros and I go to the employee sheet and I just say run, there you go, it runs the macro. Now obviously macros are great, but it's a bit cumbersome having to go to a menu option and then choose the appropriate macro. One of the other options that you've actually got on this developer sheet is an insert, and one thing you can insert, I mean there's a few things that you can insert, but we're not going to really look at those other controls. The only one is really the button, so we can stick a button in there. You click on it, and then you just highlight to create your button, whatever size you want, and you tell it which macro you want to run when that button is clicked. So this button is on the employee sheet, so obviously we want to run the data one, and say OK. If you right click in the button, you can also change the text. Button 1's obviously not as meaningful. How about we go data, and we go to data. We'll do the same thing. We'll insert a button, and we're going to do employees, and edit the text, and we okay. So what's that mean? So now when I click on that, it takes me to employees, and that one takes me back. Okay, you can do other things. You can actually so you can assign other macros. What you can also do is create macros to do other things. So for example, if I wanted to have something that will delete this information, so I will record another macro. I'll call it clear. Okay, and what I want to do this time is I want to highlight all of those fields and delete them. Okay, obviously it gives me an error, stop recording, and just undo that delete because I want the data in there itself. And again, I can put a button on the screen to clear the data. Call it clear. Okay, same thing. Okay, there you go. Undo. It's actually saved it there, but we so I've actually got all the data lost from that, but anyway, we don't really need the data for this sheet. The thing that is important to remember, okay, so as well as creating the macros, as I said, from 2003 a lot changed, and one of them was that there were actually different data types in Excel. Okay, so when you create a spreadsheet with macros, you actually need to save it in the appropriate format. Okay, so all of the things up to 2003 you had a data type of XLS. All of the latest worksheets are XLX, Excel worksheet, but because I've got macros in there, I actually need to save it as an Excel macro enabled worksheet, so it's a worksheet with macros in it. Okay, if I don't do that, what will happen is that that macro will not be stored in there, and then obviously we can't run it. Okay, so save that, and so that allows us to run the macro. So if I go back into my pigs galore, and as you'll notice, it's Excel SM, so it's the macro enabled one, and actually I've just got to enable content. It will do the navigation. I need to get my data back again, obviously, because it's got rubbish because I've deleted all those details, but you can see now we've got a macro to do all the work for us. Okay, so that's it for